News and Talk, WAOK Women's History Month series, Woman to Woman, Conversations with Juandolyn Stokes. This week, Juandolyn sits down with Ayanna Gregory, a remarkable woman who continues to honor and uphold the legacy of her father, the legendary comedian and civil rights activist, Dick Gregory, as she continues to carry forth his legacy through a singer, dramatist, educator, and creator. Through her work, Ayanna teaches us how to heal and feel with our emotions, but also advocates passionately for justice and equality. Growing up as the daughter of a civil and human rights icon has deeply influenced her perspective and mission in life. She shares stories about her family and her father and the profound impact he's had on her life, and how some of the same things that he fought for in the 60s are still prevalent today. Ayanna Gregory has created the unforgettable one-woman show entitled Daughter of the Struggle. Her musical roots are steep in the struggle of the freedom movement. And now, Woman to Woman, Conversations with Juandolyn Stokes and Ayanna Gregory.
Hi, this is Juandolyn Stokes, and welcome to my Woman to Woman series happening each week. And of course, it's a time to share with amazing women who are doing amazing things. I'm a host of On Point with Juandolyn Stokes, and of course, you can listen to us every day, weekdays, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. So I'm so excited today because I get to share with the beautiful Ayanna Gregory. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Juandolyn. I am so incredibly blessed and happy to be here with you right now. Thank you.
I'm glad to have you. Just excuse my excitement. I'm always like this. I'm not on anything.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, but I'm certainly glad to have you here. You represent the legacy, certainly, of your father, Dick Gregory, who was comedian, actor, writer, social activist, and just really advocating for the rights of humans and human beings, and also making sure that, we have equity and fighting for justice. Right. And, as we start here, what was it like, growing up in the Gregory home?
It was wild. No, it was incredible. And it was wild, truthfully. There was never a dull moment. We kind of lived between worlds. So, our father, our parents, were freedom fighters, activists. So there was, but as you know, he started out in Hollywood. He started out as a comedian, was becoming quite famous as a comedian in the early 60s. So we grew up in a world, a unique world between worlds, because, there he was in the midst of so many of the heavy hitters of the celebrities in Black Hollywood. And then more importantly, when Medgar Evers asked him to come down to Mississippi in the early 60s, he gave up all of that fame, fortune, and Hollywood life for the movement. So we lived in this world that really, understood the Hollywood realm. We were so focused, so laser focused in things that were more meaningful to us in the movement. So, we grew up with phone taps and death threats, and there were very serious elements of the movement. But my father was a comedian and also a very spiritual master. And so he really understood. He would always say, fear and God don't occupy the same space. So we grew up in a really an extraordinary world. I don't even know how to compare it because it was all we knew. But it was very powerful, a very powerful way to grow up. And then we were also, vegetarians when it was not cool to be a vegetarian in the early 70s. So, that
That's
wasn't
true.
fun. I'm grateful now, but, so we were very atypical, very abnormal, when you think of, just like a typical American or even African-American family. We were just very different.
When you see things happening today, and in the past 5 years, 10 years, past decade, Black Lives Matter, the killing of George Floyd, when you reflect back on former President Barack Obama, his reign, does it remind you, the climate that we've gone through as African Americans, does it remind you of that time and period when your dad was making that transition from Hollywood and just fighting for the cause as a freedom fighter?
It does. And when I go back to some of the speeches and interviews he did in the 60s, literally you could take what he said and place it firmly and flatly in 2024, and 9 times out of 10, everything that he said would still be spot on. He talked about everything that we are still dealing with now. And so some of the interviews I saw, they were just uncanny when I looked at, like, wow, whether it was police brutality, issues around voting and voting rights, voting registration, to just everything, of as we exist on this continuum of freedom and liberation and equity and equality, we are just the continuum of that. So yeah, it absolutely does. It really does. He raised us to be out in these streets demonstrating and picketing and, speaking and standing up and speaking up and going to jail if we have to, for doing the right thing. So it never really ended. Of course it changed faces, but yeah, definitely, to answer your question, very much of a similar feeling.
What do you see as part of your call in terms of continuing out the legacy of your family?
That's a great question. Healing. I'm very clear that the gifts that I have been given as a performing artist are to be used for the purposes of upliftment and healing, my own healing, and then the healing of the community around me and throughout the planet. So I've really gotten heavily into working with young people around really just helping to heal their hearts. We out here as activists, but if we don't deal with the spiritual and healing dimensions, we will be incomplete. So I feel like my father understood that, his journey was spiritual, but also very physical. My journey is more dealing with the inner realm of the spirit and the healing work that needs to be done today, because we're in a lot of pain and the young people are in a lot of pain. And so I get to, I travel the world and I use my, voice and healing frequencies and conversations and storytelling to really just tap into their hearts and hope to inspire something in them to allow them to recognize that they are the ones they've been looking for and waiting for.
Wow. I'm glad you say that, because one of the things that you said is that part of your responsibility is to cause people to feel and heal.
Yes.
That is so very important to you. How does music, you as a singer, as an artist, as a dramatist, just being involved in arts and entertainment, how powerful is music, first of all? And then secondly, what's the impact of storytelling?
Those are great questions. Music is so powerful because it's literally a vibration. And sometimes I think we don't give it enough credit. Music is extremely impactful. Music is present wherever we are, and it's present in every movement. It's present during wartime, it's present during peacetime, it's present everywhere. It's when people, get married, when they die, when, music is always there, and it's there for a reason. And I believe that the power of music is because it is a vibration. There's songs that we listen to that lift us up. There's songs that we listen to that could get us angry. There's songs that could make us sad. So we can, we can just feel the physiological effect of sound vibration, sound frequency as it affects us. And music has been used as a weapon, particularly in the Black community. When we look at the industry and how music has been dumbed down. And now I'm not just talking about lyrics. I am talking about lyrics, but also just the actual frequency of the music. There was a time when pop music was Stevie Wonder. So think about how healing that was in the 70s and the 80s, and, Aretha Franklin and all of that. Even though she was gospel, she was also in the realm of popular music. And now, you have to kind of search out to find those artists who are really coming with the healing vibrations. And that was done on purpose. So music is powerful. And then what was the second question you had?
The second one was about storytelling.
Oh, storytelling is amazing, because I feel like, so often, in the African tradition, the griot, the storyteller, was the historian. And they held in the oral tradition these stories that were intricately connected to themselves, their families, for generations and generations. Oftentimes we see stories that have nothing to do with us. and we buy into someone else's narrative and story. So I tell people all the time, tell your story. I do a play called Daughter of the Struggle, and it's full of stories, full of personal stories, my sisters, my brothers, my parents from the civil and human rights movement that are powerful, more powerful than anything that I would see, in my opinion, from somebody else's fictitious stories on television, because these stories are real and we all have them. So I feel like storytelling is such an important part of how we remember and recall the power and the brilliance and the beauty and the strength and the resilience of our ancestors, of our parents, you know, those who are still living. So I say, tell your story, because your children, you know, black mothers and fathers, I feel like there was a time where they were so busy trying to get their children what they didn't have, they forgot to pass on what they did have. So I'm like, you putting your children in front of the television and let the children be raised up by the television, and they're not connected to those stories, but then they'll buy into them. But you, mother and father, have stories that are so powerful that the children it's in their bloodline, those stories they're connected to. So to me, storytelling is everything.
Do you feel that much of Tupac, for example, that he was doing a lot of storytelling and talking about the violence, talking about what it meant to be raised in these neighborhoods and communities? Do you think that's a great part of even what hip hop artists are doing even today, heralding and telling the stories?
I do. And speaking of Tupac, you know, when you have songs like Dear Mama, those songs reflected the vulnerability that he was willing to share. Because I feel like too often in the realm of commercial hip hop, that vulnerability is not there, and everybody want to be hard and everybody want to glorify the things that have been killing the Black community for decades. But I love when these artists will allow themselves to be vulnerable, will allow themselves to talk about the pain, to talk about the beauty of their grandmother and their mother who raised them, or their father who passed down these powerful nuggets. So for me, it is those stories, you know, and that's what I mean when I say sometimes if you don't have a story, somebody else will give you one, and then you'll think it's yours. So I used to work with young people, and they're listening to these commercial hip hop artists talking about all kinds of things that were not positive. And I'm like, baby boy, baby girl, that's not your story. You know, I want you to talk about your story, come from the heart. You don't have to be hard. Let's talk about in the moments, you know what I mean? Your understanding of, you know, the God in you. Let's talk about that. So those stories to me, and I'm glad you brought up Tupac, because like I said, songs like Dear Mama, he allowed himself to let other young brothers know it's okay to talk about your mama in your song. It's okay to talk about her struggle and how much you love her versus, you know, talking about things that really are of no positive influence on the community. So yes, I think storytelling in hip hop, in music, in television and filmmaking and poetry, in visual arts, sculpting, you know, fine arts. I think storytelling in all of those realms and modalities are extremely, extremely important. I think we have a responsibility though to not just tell the story, but leave something in that story that is life-giving. So even if you're telling a sad story, let there be something redemptive. So you leave people with something that they can dream for or affirm, something that affirms the light force and the life force inside of them. I think that's very important. Art should never be, in my opinion, art is not for art's sake. We have a responsibility to leave our environment better than we found it. That's just how I was raised. I know everybody doesn't think that way. Yeah. It's because it's powerful and you influence people. You know what I mean? So It's like, I can tell a story, but now this story belongs to millions of people. And so what do I want to leave them with in their day, on their way?
And that's having the right approach and mindset that whatever I'm going through, whatever my story is not just for me, but it's to help others. Yes. Yeah, to overcome and to continue to fight through it.
That's right.
Do you feel that we are sometimes afraid to share the pain?
100%. You know, I work with an incredible brother named Dr. Bruce Purnell, and he has a movement called the Love More movement here in Washington, D.C. And he talks about the fact that, Black, specifically, boys, Black men have been told you can't cry, you can't be vulnerable, and so all of that pain that has been, caused folks to just implode because they felt like they couldn't express it on the outside. And not just boys, just anybody that just felt like, look, I can't afford to be vulnerable. I can't out in these streets, and I don't just mean physical streets, but just out in this world where, you don't let them see you sweat. You see people on social media that, only show up when life is amazing and they never want to talk about those hard moments. I remember a time a couple of years ago, I went on Instagram Live, and I've never done this before, and I was petrified to do it because I show up in the world as someone who tries to inspire other people. And I said, well, if you down, well, what's that going to look like? You out here trying to help other people. If you are low, what does that say about you? So I had all this judgment, and then I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And I did a piece for about 45 minutes talking about the depression that I was experiencing at that time. It was intense. And I just was like, sometimes it's okay to just feel the feels. And so many people reached out to me and said, girl, you don't know what that did for me. Knowing that you were going through it too, I didn't feel alone, and I was just like, I call it Olympic times. We are in Olympic times right now because what we are having to deal with just to wake up and, in the world, everything that's coming at us and coming on us, everything we're being exposed to. And so I'm like, we look at Olympians and we think, what did it take to get them to that place of being extraordinary? Well, I believe emotionally that we are Olympians just because of what we are enduring and taking in, the things we can't even see, that are affecting us. And so I say, yes, vulnerability can be our superpower. Just being able to let it all out, cry a river, tears are healing. You don't have to stay in that place, but allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to heal. So I think it's really important.
Wow, that's good. That was a big risk for you to do that on social media, but you see how it really, blessed so many people. And it's like, goes back to what you said earlier, what are you leaving with others, sharing with others, because others relate to what you're going through. But if they never hear, those stories and understand that pain is a part of the process, but also with that comes joy and it comes peace. How has what you have experienced come through the arts, through your singing, your music, and all that you do in entertainment? How have you brought that forth through the arts?
Wow. There's a song that comes to mind called Now, and it's a song that I wrote or really just came through me some years ago. And it was at a time when I was very low and I had just ended a relationship and I was just, ground zero emotionally. And I went and I spent some time on a farm and I just cried and I prayed and meditated. And this song came through me called Now. And it has become such a healing anthem for so many people around the country. I carry it with me when I do healing workshops and meditations. And, it started out as this just vulnerable moment of me just expressing how sad and low I was. And then now here this song is, that's bringing tears, powerful tears to so many people, particularly women in spaces around the country. And so I find that, me telling on myself and telling my stories it was the best thing I could ever do, because it was a time I didn't write that way. And writing music, I was like, I got to write the way I want people to see me all the time. And then I said, but that's not always you. That's not always the life or the moment that you're in. So you got to be 360 degrees. So then when I kind of started to break down those walls and tell on myself, talk about the contradictory aspects of me, talk about the things about me that I wasn't proud of, that's when stuff really began to open up and people relate to that. And so I find that, that began to change things for me. And of course, my play Daughter of the Struggle is a very personal story of, what has happened in my family in the movement. So that became a form of art that now I get to do all over the world. So I have carried so much of my life and poured it into the music and the art. And now I don't even know where one thing begins and one thing ends, because it's all kind of
Wow. What are some of those lyrics of Now?
So let's see. Always played the victim role to satisfy my need to be right. Always feeling so alone, neglected by the men in my life. But they were just doing what I wanted. They were just giving what I gave. But now I want the real thing. So let it be a new path I pay. And then it was afraid of my destiny. Who am I to live too big? The universe keeps blessing me. But every single time I renege, I'm filled with insecurities. I'm sabotaging royalty, planned mediocrity, yeah, a self-fulfilled prophecy. I'm so afraid to let them see who is she. And then the hook is, I know that I want more. What am I waiting for? I think I'm ready now. Forget what they told me. World can't hold me. And you know that you want more. What I am waiting for. I think you're ready now. Forget what they told you. World can't hold you now. All
Oh
that
my
came from
God.
a place of such pain, and now it's a place and a space of
Wow.
healing.
Wow. Wow. Let's just take a deep breath together. Ooh. Wow. That is so good. And it just resonates with me, and I know with our audience, with how you share it and how you deliver it. It comes from the inner you, which you said is a part of what you do, the internal. Is that part of the struggle? The internal us, the inner man. Is that part of the struggle that we are facing even today?
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest part because, when they took the shackles off of our ancestors' hands and ankles, while there was still so much physical terror and trauma and brutality that our people endured, it became a mental, you think about post-traumatic slavery syndrome and how we carry so much of these things generational, things that have been passed down, and that affects our worthiness. So you have people, some of the most beautiful, skilled, incredible, highly acclaimed people on the planet who have low self-esteem because of a worthiness conversation that started generations before them, that goes all the way back to slavery. They kept us from our language, our God, our drum, our understanding of life and living. We didn't have a proper rites of passage in the Black community. And so, so the mental, the internal, that's a real thing. And that's why I'm glad that so many people, especially in the Black community, are really getting into meditation and affirmation. I see so many people, affirming themselves. I am worthy, I am powerful, I am I'm beautiful, I matter, I got this, I am blessed, I am peaceful. All of these things that are, because that can take you out, more than the physical. Those internal conversations that we have with ourselves, and particularly as Black women, you compliment somebody, or somebody compliments you, girl, you look beautiful. Oh, girl, not me. That's you. We sometimes have a hard time just receiving, and so now I try to do a better job of, I receive that. This didn't come from me. God created this, so why am I going to block it? I receive it. Yes, and you are too. So that internal piece. Gil Scott-Heron said the revolution will not be televised, and he said that really the real revolution is here. It is here. Right. It's right here.
That's right. That's right. When you think about the movement and your father, his involvement in the movement, how would you define the movement in the 60s versus the movement today? Is the definition or philosophy around it the same, or is it slightly different?
I think it's okay. So in the 60s, we had I think in the 60s, you knew who was for you and you knew who was against you. That's one. It was, so there was some Black and white aspects of the movement in that way, where it was kind of evident, racism was so overt and it was clear, you know what I mean? Like a wolf was going to show up in wolf's clothes. And so, and the Black community was more united in that way. You know, not to say that, you know, there wasn't division within our community, but it was much less of that as we see it today. So I feel like at that time we were clear, you know what I mean? Like, I know I'm in physical danger everywhere I go. I could be lynched as a man, as a woman, as a child. You know, we still remember Emmett Till's face. You know what I mean? His disfigured face that his mother Mamie ensured that the whole world would see, that we would not forget. So I think the movement was understood in a different kind of way, in a more clear black and white way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Whereas now, so many of those racist, not just overt racist actions by individuals, but racist policies that came from the United States government, those things shifted they shifted faces. You know, so they began to speak in code words. So, you know, instead of saying Black people, they'd say urban. Instead of slavery, we have, you know, the criminal injustice system, you know, with mass incarceration. So they still gonna figure out a way to incarcerate Black people and make them give free labor. We just gonna put them in jail. We're gonna find ways to, you know, imprison people, whether they did anything or not, get them in jail. And now we have this assembly line in jail so slavery all over again. So I think it's easier to miss the level of racism and white supremacy that exists today because it's in the food. You know what I mean? It's in the, we're not going to fund the school systems in the Black community. It's in the, we're going to, you know, we're going to track young boys and Black girls and label them as ADHD, and we're going to track them, and, you know, education to the prison. What do they call it? Pipe to prison line. Pipeline.
Yeah,
to the schools to prison pipeline. That so in that, it's much easier for people to say, oh, that doesn't exist today. It's much more easier for people to say, you know, oh, you going too far with that. That's not, you know, that was then, this isn't now. So I think the movements now, they're still here, you know, with Black Lives Matter. We have an incredible organization in Washington, D.C. called Harriet's Wildest Dreams. You know, you still have national organizations, NAACP, Urban League, and other organizations. I think that I do think that a lot of young people, there are young people who are out here doing the work. And then there's a lot of young people that just don't feel connected because some of the older national organizations, some of them haven't really passed the baton like I think they should. And the thing is, in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, it was young people in SNCC, in CORE, NAACP, it was young people doing this work. They were vested. And so I think we have a responsibility, and those who are older than us, to really pass that baton and say, no, y'all got it. The Birmingham Children's Crusade, and, you know, was it May 3rd, 1962? That was young people who did that. And so, you know what I'm saying? The young people, again, and we just lost another great ancestor, Mama Dory Ladner, who I can't remember how old she is or how old she was, but an elder. You know, she was, you see the pictures of her, you know, with SNCC down in Mississippi, with voters registration, they were young people. So I think that's one of the issues now, is that some of the elders who still, you know, who are in these high positions in these civil and human rights organizations, they get to really pass the baton to the youth, and still educate them, give them the wisdom. Because don't nobody know everything, and we need the wisdom from the elders. But I really think that piece is missing, and it's starting to happen. But you know, you have powerful activists out here, Tamika Mallory, Untold Freedom, you know, Black Voters Matter, Black Lives Matter. You have all these, you know, younger folks, and, you know, and not so young, who are doing incredible work. So the work is happening. I think it's important for the young people to be able to see themselves in it. Otherwise, they're going to be like, what this got to do with me? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the difference too. Young people on the ground, they understood in the 60s, because their lives were in danger in a very real way and a very physical way every single day. Whereas because that's not the case for everybody now, we can miss it, you know, but it's still happening. It's still, you know, I think the movements are growing, you know, I do.
Do you think that the older generation is a part of the responsibility to reach and pull in the younger generations?
I do. and to
Okay.
listen to the young people, not just
That's
let it be a one way. I mean, they have much wisdom to give the children, but the
yes.
children are unique in that, I don't know what it's like to be a teenager growing up in 2024. They are experts in that. They have to tell me what their life
Yes.
is like. I can't tell them what their life is like. They have to tell me. And so I think there has to be a circular, communicative relationship where the youth get to be heard, not just be spoken to.
Yes. Yes. Do you feel that your father, you said one thing, you said that your father made the sacrifice,
Yes.
shifted from Hollywood and right into the movement.
Yeah.
How do you view that sacrifice? Do you feel like it was a calling for him? Do you feel like it was just something that was always on his heart and mind, even while he was in Hollywood, but now he's got to give more attention to the movement?
My dad, while he was in Hollywood and he was, moving up this ladder and, they were really preparing him to be a household name in America, I think he was fully invested on the one hand, but there was something about my father's rebellious heart and his spirit that probably always knew something else was coming. And my father, even in college, was definitely, he was a rebel. He fought for equal rights. He was an incredible athlete, and he went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois, and so he made changes. I think not because he was thinking, oh, I'm ready to be this great change maker. I think it was just in the moment, if there was a need and he saw something that needed to happen, he just wasn't scared. So I think that was the commonality. He wasn't afraid as a comedian and he wasn't afraid as an activist. So if he saw something, it's like, wait a minute, we just gonna sit here? No, we're gonna do something. So I think it was circumstantial in terms of his involvement, but it came from a fearlessness that was always there. And when you talk about the sacrifice, I just want to be clear that people understand the level of sacrifice. So he sacrificed, my father literally gave millions of dollars to the movement, literally. And he gave up probably what would have been hundreds of millions that he never made because of when he walked away from the movement at a point where he's ready to just explode. He walks away, knowing what that means. And let me tell you something. We literally lost in 1991. We lost our house. We lost our house because at the time, he gave it all away. And at the point where, the house was on the line and he didn't know if he was gonna, because he's doing, the movement don't pay, the payment doesn't come in monetary form. It pays, but not in monetary forms. And so there was a good friend of ours who gave him a 6-figure check so that we could, so he could pay off the debt. And at that same time, I think it was Hosea Williams down in Atlanta, who in Forsyth County, who needed the money. He didn't ask my father for it, but my father saw a need and he just wrote the check, signed the check over, and we literally lost the house. So when I say my father wasn't playing with this thing, he wasn't playing with it, like even to the extent that his family was affected. Assassination attempts on his life, my family members at 4 and 6 years old being thrown in a police car as little girls and put in jail. I'm talking about the level of sacrifice unimaginable to the typical American. So, I mean, his sacrifice was to the bone, to the core, and all the way. He rode that thing till the wheels fell off. So the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And my mother's sacrifice. I mean, my God, I can't even begin to tell you her level of sacrifice. But we're talking about two powerful people who gave everything they had to the movement and to their children.
Wow. People don't really know, the story behind. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm so glad to really be able to talk to you today. You mentioned about your parents' fearlessness. Yeah. Do you feel that you picked up some of those traits from your parents?
I would be honest. I really feel like I could use some more fearlessness. I was just talking to my dad in spirit, and I said, Daddy, I'm gonna need you to help me out with the level of fearlessness you was working with, because I don't know how he was. I mean, he was no limit with it. And so, yes, I can say that there is courage that I have, and courage that I've grown into.
Yeah.
I used to laugh and tell people, man, I'm really a punk by nature, but in a family like mine, you better buy you some courage. You better buy you some courage if you have to. So I think there are levels of it that sometimes I don't even recognize that I have, just because some things were just kind of like commonplace for us. But I'll be honest, I could use some more courage, especially moving into what's next. We see all these things, the genocide happening in Palestine, and the genocide happening in Congo, everything that's happening in Haiti and Sudan. And I really, I want to travel to these places. I want to go and be on the ground, and do what I can do. And so, I can't say that there are times that I'm not afraid, but I keep hearing my father, fear and God don't occupy the same space. Let me tell you something, baby girl, fear and God don't occupy the same space. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got this. So It's there, it's in me.
Okay. And some things kind of grow and evolve over time too, when you look back at your parents. So tell us, how was it working with Stevie Wonder, Bob Marley, and others? How has that been for you?
So with Bob Marley, I never worked with him, but I got the chance to meet him when I was 6 years old. My father was opening up for him at something called the Amandla Festival in Harvard Yards in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it was like, tens of thousands of people. And I was just like, oh my God, all these people. And so I met the man, at 6 years old, you don't know the significance. I remember sitting on Muhammad Ali's lap at 5, and, we were just around so many people, Marvin Gaye and Michael Jackson and Jackson 5. And as a child, you just know you're in the midst of something phenomenal, but you don't really know. And after, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I met Bob Marley when I was 6. Stevie Wonder was different because I actually have a relationship with him. He's been a mentor and a friend. He was, good friends with my father for many years. And so, I had the opportunity to sing with him on stage, which has been incredible. I've had the opportunity to be mentored by him. And Stevie is he's such a beautiful human being. Like, I don't know anybody who's as famous as he is, who has the kind of pure heart. To be in an industry like that and to still maintain such a purity of your heart is just an incredible feat. And somehow he does it. But I had the opportunity to, he reached out to me a couple years ago, which this was just blowing my mind. And I have to tell this story. I was in a particularly depressed space. And I remember I was just like, feel the feels. It's all right. Just let yourself be where you're at. Don't judge yourself. And I remember I have these beautiful murals and portraits of my father that people sent me after my father passed. So they're on the wall. Okay. And so I remember the night before this thing happened, I'm about to tell you, I'm looking at this picture of my dad, and I was like, Daddy, I need you right now. I was praying to God, just praying to be healed in this feelings that I was dealing with, and having worthiness conversations, not feeling enough. And so I was praying, I was talking to my dad, and I was looking at the picture of him. I was like, Dad, I need you to show me that next level magic you was working with, just as a spiritual master, just show me. I'm ready, Dad. And literally the next day, I get a call from Stevie Wonder. No, it was a text. And it said, call me. I want to work with you on something. And I was like, before I called him, I'm hollering and screaming and dancing all around. And then I called him back, and he said, I have a song, and I want you to write it with me. So baby, I can't tell you what that did. And it was just confirmation. God is real. Spirit is real. The communication with our ancestors is real. Like, it was so immediate that it almost scared me, but I was like, I'm ready.
Okay.
And it was powerful. So it's been amazing, watching Stevie in the studio, watching him work, watching just all of his genius abilities and sensibilities is incredible. So it's been a blessing. I don't take any of it for granted.
Wow, that's awesome. How was it for you doing that, the one woman show, Daughter of the Struggle? I mean, what was preparation like? And then, like, when the show started, how was that for you?
Oh, it was scary because the first time I did it, I had never told such personal stories. People knew my dad, but they didn't know, a lot of them
Yeah.
didn't know my mom, Lillian Gregory, or that he had 10 kids or anything about our lives. So partly I was a little self-conscious because I wanted to make sure that my siblings were okay with it. I didn't even let my
Okay.
father see it until maybe like the sixth time I did it because I was so petrified. Like, what is he going to say? Like, I'm there in the play. I'm embodying him. I'm embodying my siblings. So you want to get it right, and you want it to be authentic.
Yeah.
And so when my father was sitting, I was like, please don't put him in the front. I don't want to lock eyes with him and accidentally forget the words. I don't want to forget the words. And so my dad was sitting in that front row. Whoo. And it was like an outer body experience. Here I am telling a story. My father is sitting in the front, listening to the story of his life, and then me tell it from the perspective of, myself and the children and my mother's life. And then there's a sea of people listening for the first time to me talk about, the intimate realities of what it was like. Because people always ask me, what was it like to grow up with a daddy like him? And so this was like the real telling of it. And so it was scary. It was exciting. It was otherworldly. I felt like I was out of my body. And then can I please tell you that when this again was the first time my father saw it, when after the play was over, and I'm sweating and I'm just like, I got through it. Oh, thank you, God. We brought him up on stage and just let him talk. And Dick Gregory began to cry. And just the tears, to see the tears coming down my father's eyes, I can't tell you how much that meant. And one of the first things he said when he got the mic, he said, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, and Malcolm X never got the chance to hear their children talk about them.
Wow.
I have just had the opportunity to hear my child talk about my entire life. And I know now that she gets it. I know that my children, I know that they get it. And so I think it was like also a moment of exhale for him, like, she got it. She understands. She's not me. Her journey is not mine, but she got it. And they got it, And so it was, and so doing it now, I'm actually going to be doing it I'm going to be doing it on Saturday in the DC area at a place called Leisure World. And so I'll be doing it, but I'll be, I've done it in Atlanta a few times. And it's been incredible. I can't wait to bring it to Atlanta again and just travel around the country with it. I do it a lot at colleges and, theaters around. I do it for young people, schools. But it's been a blessing. And the beautiful thing too, is that when I do the play, the elders are very emotional because they've lived it. They've lived the movement. And then the children are just inspired. And so I'm just like, it's an inspiration on both sides, and it's just a blessing. We do a Q&A afterwards. And so it's a blessing.
Oh, that's good. Wow, that's great. That's great. So as you continue forward, what's your mission, your work, as you're continuing to move forward for the movement and even in the arts?
Wow. So as I continue forward, I'd like to record some more albums. It's been a while since I've recorded singles in the last year. The last song I recorded was a song called Ceasefire, just giving our standing in solidarity with Palestinians, again, experiencing genocide. I also want to do a song about Congo. And I want to do a meditation album. I'm ready to record an entire meditation album because I do meditation so many places, and people are like, I need a recording. I need something I can have. And so that, and I also am, I spend a lot of time in Jamaica. So I recorded one reggae song, but I'd like to do more when I go back to Jamaica and record some more reggae music. And then I've always had a love for house music, and I love Afrobeat. So I want to do kind of a combination of African house and Afrobeat musical project full of just positive, powerful affirmations and lyrics to really lift us up. So that's the work. I continue to do I do school assemblies, motivational assemblies around the country, kindergarten through high school.
Okay.
I speak at colleges. And when I say speak, because I'm a musician first, music is always present. Healing frequency is always present. So it's a combination of these things. And so, yeah, and I'd like to get into film. I really would like to move into that realm of film and filmmaking, but all in the name of, healing and love and light and liberation. And, just me hoping to make my parents proud and to be, as my father would say, a person who does her best to leave her environment better than she found it. That's just what my goal is. And that's what I hope.
Well, certainly that's what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, the Gregory legacy is just alive and well and certainly shining brightly through you. Would you say that certain sounds and certain beats stimulate certain feelings? Like the drum,
Absolutely.
and the highs and the lows, like the bass and the tenor sounds. Do you feel that they stimulate certain emotions within people in a positive way?
They do. They can stimulate them in any direction. They stimulate the body, and that's why you can really literally feel physical. Sometimes you can feel a tingling in your body. You can feel a heaviness. You can feel lifted. In a physiological way, these musical keys and tones affect the body, and they affect emotions. And that's why a lot of people who do the musical healing, they have crystal bowls that are connected to certain keys. Something may be in the key of A, the key of E or C, and those keys are directly connected to the energy centers in the body, as connected to different chakras. And so these things, certainly, if they affect the body, they also affect the emotion. And so there's certain songs that you hear. It's almost like if you watch a movie and you feel it's a scary scene, and you hear music that's very daunting and that has a heaviness that affects, and they play on your emotions in those scenes. And then in another context, when you are in a space and you're in a meditative realm and you hear these tones, the chimes and the crystal bowls and the Tibetan singing bowls and the drum, the African drum, whether it's the djembe or the talking drum or the kungas or the bongos, you feel something, and it connects you. It's almost like connects you. It affects you on a cellular level, and it connects you. I think, I truly believe that was one of the reasons they banned the drum during the enslavement of our people, because they knew the power of the drum, the power of that sound. But literally, we carry the drum in us, and so that's the thing. That's what we understood, that God is in us, and so as in being in the reflection of the creator, we are also co-creators. So, okay, you could take the drum, you could take that too, but guess what? The drum lives in me. Guess what? I get to play my own vocal instrument. I am an instrument, so I get to play that. So and sounds, like ah, and you think about how healing, amen, I mean, there are sounds that show up in every religion, every part of the world, and they show up as healing in every part. So they're powerful. Sometimes when I do meditations with people, I have them take their own hand and put them to their throat as they say ah or om. These are sounds, universally powerful sounds of the universe that are in sync with the universe. And so when we begin to understand ourselves as a healing vessel and our own ability to heal ourselves with these sounds, ah, om, I am, these sounds continue to show up in healing spaces. So we get to be more intentional about the sounds that we allow to come out of our bodies, because guess what? Whatever I'm saying to somebody else, it affects me first. It affects me.
Wow. Oh, powerful. Wow, that's powerful. Give us a quick example of meditation.
So, okay. Close your eyes and just take a deep breath in. Release. And just allow your body to, any tension that you may feel in your shoulders, just allow it to drop. And just be in the stillness of this moment and allow yourself to feel everything that you feel, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, to the bottom of your feet. And as you breathe in, just be conscious of your breathing, be aware. And as your eyes are closed, take your own journey on the inside of you. And I want you to imagine everything that you want in your life, or just in this day right here. And I want you to see it as if it is already happening. I want you to feel it and feel the emotion of the joy around having it all. If you knew that you couldn't fail, if you knew that failure was not an option, I want you to see everything that you're doing now, knowing that you can have it all. And as you're seeing yourself moving in action or stillness, but just being exactly where you want to be and who you want to be, I want you to just see yourself smiling, feel yourself feeling good, and just be in that moment. And know that all is well. And as you are seeing everything that you are choosing for yourself, I want you to say, all is well in my world. I am the light and life force of God that can never fail. Take another deep breath in. Hold it. And let it out, and just let it all go.
Wow. All is well. All is well. Thank you so much. You have shared so much with us today, just woman to woman and sharing in this series. We appreciate you, the Gregory legacy that you continue to carry forth, and your legacy, and you helping others to feel and heal. Thank you so very much, Ayanna Gregory. Thank you for being a part of Woman to Woman with Juandolyn Stokes. Much love to you. And I will always remember, and we want all of you who are watching to always know, all is well. She's taken us through meditation. She's talked to us, encouraged, empowered us, and challenged us. Thank you so very much, Ayanna. We love you, my sister girl.
Thank
love
you.
Thank
you, Queen. Love you. Thank you.
Love you, Queen. Mwah.